live from Studio 3 and we're with you for 1 hour. My name is Dr. Amr MABROuk. Dua Muhammad is at the control and we are FM 95.4. And yes, this is the world of info. And today in our program, it is the world of books. And yes, we are presenting today, as usual, two very interesting books that deserve to be read. The first book is Ancient Egypt from Prehistory to Islamic Conquest. And the second book is The Ego is the Enemy by Ryan Holiday. And yes, two very interesting books, and we are going to start right away with Ancient Egypt from Prehistory to the Islamic Conquest by the Britannica Group. And as we all know that Britannica is one of the most important encyclopedias of the world, and it has two editions, a macro and a micro Britannica, and there were 20 volumes of the macro Britannica and 10 volumes of the minor Britannica, and they have it has really survived many years before, even before the internet and before the computer. But nowadays it's more or less online, and it is really one of the most prestigious encyclopedias. So when this group really tried to make a book about ancient Egypt, definitely we have to take this book very seriously and look into it and see how far it has improved our look to ancient Egypt. I always have a lot of questions from my friends suggesting and asking me what will be the best book to read about Egypt or an introduction about Egypt. And I tell them that there are really three stages of Egyptian history that you can have try a book that is related to it, because one of these books is about ancient Egypt, and then a book about from the Greco-Roman period from 332 BC till 640, which is the Islamic conquest of Egypt, or and from 640 onwards, and that is Egypt in the medieval period. And so we'll start covering these three books, and the first book will be about ancient Egypt from prehistory to the Islamic conquest. When President Sadat said once in one of his speeches that Egypt is the civilization of the 7,000 years old civilization, he was not joking, he was not exaggerating, because the written history of ancient Egypt starts from 3,100 years BC. And then there are the 2,000 years afterwards, which now we are the year 2025 AD, that will make up about 3,100 plus 2025, that is 5,125. But we have proved that, historians have proved and Egyptologists have proved that there were 2,000 years pre-dynastic period where Egypt has seen two states, one from the north and one from the south. And this is the north symbolized by the lotus, and the south symbolized by the papyrus. And both these states had friendly relations sometimes, and sometimes there were some conflict. And the northern part of the valley is the delta, and this is the northern state. The southern part is from the apex of the delta downwards, or as we can call it, Upper Egypt, because it is higher than the level of Lower Egypt. And yes, a lot of information have been gathered, although there was no written documents, because the writing of ancient Egypt was not yet put into consideration, and there was no hieroglyphic written writings. But it was found a civilization of a pre-dynastic period, where we can find the people living in healthy houses, having their own sewage system, and real streets in their villages, and having a lot of tools found out. So they were not living in wretched places or bad places, and so this was a real civilization. Once I had a friend of mine who she had a master's degree and a PhD degree from Tulane University in New Orleans about the pre-dynastic Egypt, and this proves how far this has gone through history, and this was 2,000 years. So yes, President Sadat was right when he said Egypt is the history of 7,000 years of civilization. Now, the second important point is what made these first 2000 years not recorded properly in history because there was no writing discovered. The Egyptian writing or handwriting has started with the hieroglyphics, and this started, there were a lot of trials before, but the hieroglyphics started writing in the ancient, the first dynasty, which started in 3100 BC. And this is the famous Mina, the king, who was a king from the south. He united the south and the north to be bound together in one kingdom. And therefore, always the king, the ancient Egyptian kings, would wear the composite crown, the crown that has two symbols, and that is the symbol of the south and the symbol of the north put together in one crown. And this was the idea of having a pharaoh as a king and at the same time as a sub-god. The writings started, and we find always the ancient Egyptians kings always trying to prove always that the north and the south are carefully bound together. The lotus and the papyrus, the symbols are the lotus for the north, papyrus for the south, and you can see the bonding between these two plants on the throne of the pharaoh. And we can see the king always wearing the composite crown of the north and the south. The handwriting started with the hieroglyphics, and there were three types of the writing of ancient Egyptians. The hieroglyphics, which is the one which is very official, and it's written on the walls of the temples. And then there is the hieratic, which is a more easier way of writing hieroglyphics, and it is used by the scribes in writing on the papyrus, and the papyrus has been used regularly as a writing paper. And then there is the demotic, and the demotic is also a very interesting way of writing, and it goes to write on the more easier way, and it is very much near to the writing of the Coptic letters. And this is how it goes, that for centuries, nothing we knew about ancient Egypt, and we could not find anything because nobody can understand hieroglyphics. But it was the Rosetta Stone that was discovered in the year 1800. In 1800, there was so the Rosetta Stone is a piece of stone that has found on it a text that was written in hieroglyphics and demotic and Latin. And this nobody could understand, and it was found by the French scientists who accompanied Napoleon Bonaparte. When the British came to Egypt, they took or they confiscated this Rosetta Stone and took it with them, and they kept it in the British Museum ever since. However, there was a British ophthalmologist who tried to study and decipher this Rosetta Stone. Unfortunately, he failed because he didn't know or didn't have the information about the Coptic language and the Demotic language. So it was up to a French linguistic, his name is Champollion, who's the one in 1821 who started working on the primitive work of Young, the British ophthalmologist, and was able to decipher the language, and it was really found out that he could decipher the hieroglyphics. And from then on, there has been great understanding about ancient Egypt. And yes, it's like a box that has been opened, Pandora's box that was open, but open up with good things, not with bad deeds. And then we can see that we started to understand the history of Egypt. Perhaps we should go first to the Old Kingdom. The Old Kingdom, which has been started at the year 3100 years BC, and it is this particular age that was the first dynasty with Mina as a king. Then there was the third dynasty, and the third dynasty started from 2650 to 2575. And this has a very special thing because the founder of this dynasty was Zoser. And Zoser was the builder, the grand builder of the first real well-formed pyramid, and that is the step pyramid. And Zoser had a very special architect. This architect, his name was Imhotep. And Imhotep was not just an architect, he was not just a wazir, he was not just the grand priest, but he was also the first physician. And it was Zoser who was able to visualize this pyramid and act as not just as an architect, but act as was the contractor and the civil engineer at the same time, supervising the work. And of course, a lot of workers injured, and he started trying to fetch methods to treat them, and therefore he was the first physician. All this was written on the papyrus because this is the work of the scribe, the writer, or the Egyptian writer, or the old Egyptian writer was the one who's responsible for writing the history, was responsible for writing all the stuff about ancient Egypt, and he could really tell us a lot of stories. And this was written, as we said, into Hieratic. Then this fourth dynasty, which started by Snefru, started in the year 2575 till the year 2465. For 90 years, we can see the pharaohs are the grand builders of the great pyramids. Snefru has built two beautiful pyramids. One of them is called the Tilted Pyramid, and 1 kilometer to the north of it is his other full-fledged pyramid that is of Snefru. And these two pyramids are put on the same line like all the rest of the pyramids of Egypt. They are all on the western bank. They are all, we have about 80 to 90 pyramids in Egypt, and they are all from the western side of the bank. They are all on the normal four directions. The four faces of the pyramids, each face is facing the north, the south, the east, and the west. And over there you can see these strong building and the important structures that we can see. Definitely could really find out how to understand the idea of this building. The idea of the pyramid is that is the one, it is reflecting the sun rays and therefore sharing in the worship of the god Amun, that is the false sun. And of course, when we look at these periods, how it has been divided, we see the Old Kingdom, and after that there was the Middle Kingdom, the first intermediate period, then the second, then the Middle Kingdom, then the second intermediate period, and then the invasion of the Hyksos and their control of Egypt, and the revolution of Ahmose, who was a Theban prince who came from the south and was able to liberate Egypt from Hyksos and to build the first, the 18th dynasty, which is a very great dynasty that was able to have its most important pharaohs. We can find Ahmose, we can find Amenhotep I, we can find in them the famous Thutmose I, who had two children, Hatshepsut, the daughter from a royal wife, and Thutmose II from a secondary wife, and Thutmose II has married his sister Hatshepsut, but he also has from a second wife a son that was secondary wife, was the Thutmose III, the founder of the Egyptian empire, the one who has established the security borders of Egypt, who really was able to build an empire that has its northern borders on the mountains, near the mountains of what is now Turkey, and going to the south to the seventh cataract. A great man and a builder of an empire who was a great politician at the same time. We can see a lot of important characters in the 18th dynasty, including, for example, Amenhotep III and his son Amenhotep IV. Amenhotep III is the one who gained the trophies of the empire. Amenhotep IV, who was a dreamer, who decided to put all the gods in one god, and that is Atun, the full sun disk, and he has changed his name to Akhenaton. And Akhenaton has really revolutionized not just the religion of the ancient Egyptians, but also the art of ancient Egyptians, drawing and having paintings and having sculptures which are totally different than the royal sculptures that were there. Although this was short-lived, but it was a glimpse on the vision of Egyptians and how they can really build on others and how can they become very revolutionized. Then, of course, we go to the 19th dynasty, the forms of Seti the First, and of course, before him, Hor Mohib, and the savior of the empire, and his protege, Seti the First and Ramses. And of course, we can see how these people were able to serve and help Egypt. We can find the 19th dynasty, the 20th dynasty of all Ramesses, the Libyan dynasty from the 22nd to the 23rd, 24th and 25th, the late period of Egypt, and we can go on talking about ancient Egypt forever. But definitely, this book is really enlightening. And besides the great work of the scribes, we have to talk also about the art. We said that there are two types of art in ancient Egypt. The first type of art is the classical royal art, where the pharaoh and his children are shown in the perfect way, because that is the way to show gods. Because the pharaoh will be like the shadow of God on earth. He is really a son of God. When he is alive, he's symbolizing God. When he dies, his soul will unite with the god of the dead, that is Osiris, and his son or his heir is going to be the new son of God. This went on very smoothly with the Egyptians until the rule of Akhenaten, who decided to nullify this experience and put it into one god only, and that is Atum. When we talk about the work of Akhenaten, we also have mentioned the art. So there was the classical art, there was the Amarna period art, which has shown the pharaohs in a different way than it used to be. The pharaoh is living a normal life, kissing his children, having a more or less like a caricature features of his face and his body. His wife is shown in a very beautiful face, and that is the face of Nefertiti, or what we call it, the beautiful has come. And Nefertiti, small bust that we have, that the German expedition found in Simon, the scientist, found in the year 1912, is a great example of beauty, and it has been chosen as the symbol of beauty and eternal beauty, even used as the symbol for the Egyptian Society of Plastic Surgeons back in 1962, and also the symbol or the coat of arms for the American Society of Aesthetic Plastic Surgery. When we talk for hours about the beauty of Nefertiti, we can really think how far she has led us to understanding the beauty. But also beside this royal art with its different sects, whether this is the Amarna period or the other period, we'll go definitely to talk about the royal art. And the royal art is the very special art that has given us an idea and a glimpse of the art of the noble people. The noble people are not kings. They are not royal. They are not the sons of gods. They are normal human beings, but they were rich human beings. They were aspiring to have an afterlife with the king, and they cannot think of a better life than their life should be in the afterlife, their life in Egypt. So they have decorated their tombs with beautiful appearances of the deceased, the nobleman and his wife sitting in harmony, enjoying life, doing his work or supervising his farmers, looking for his children. This beautiful noble art we can really find in a lot of ancient Egyptian tombs, and gives us an idea of how far the Egyptians were advanced. The empire of Egypt is a long-standing empire. The work of Egyptians and the regulations and the organizations. The fact that the first physician ever was not Hippocrates, but was definitely Imhotep, and his textbooks that have been written and rewritten all through the history on papyrus has reached us, and we have seen in the papyrus by Edwin Smith and other papyrus definitely we can understand how far the Egyptians were advanced. They were advanced also in the field of astronomy, they were advanced in the field of embalming, and they were advanced in the idea of having the afterlife, and where there will be a trial of the deceased, where his heart will be weighed against the feather. And the feather is the symbol of Ma'at, and Ma'at means the truth and the goodness. So if both the balance, the heart of the deceased and the feather are the same balance, then he will go to heaven. If the heart outweighs the feather, then this man did a bad deed, and therefore he's not entitled to go to heaven. And the deceased will always present his credentials to the gods, saying, I never stole, I never killed, I never hated, I never insulted, and I never ever polluted the river Nile. Well, this is just a glimpse of a very beautiful book that I think you should read. A book that gives you an idea about Egypt, and it even goes into the Greco-Roman period. And this is a beautiful period. Alexander the Great, when he came to Egypt in 332 as a conqueror, became conquered by the Egyptian art and Egyptian history, that he has worn the robes of a pharaoh. And the famous statue that we can see in the Egyptian Museum in the Tahrir Square is of Alexander the Great, one in a Greek facials, and another in the wearing the crown and the cloth of a pharaoh. And after the death of Alexander the Great, Egypt was inherited by his general Ptolemy, and Ptolemy the First has really founded a new dynasty. It was there were about 13 to 14 Ptolemies and 7 Cleopatras. They lived in Egypt, ruled as Egyptians, but of course the Egyptians didn't look to them as if they were pure Egyptians. They always considered them to be a bit foreigners. And after that, with the defeat of Cleopatra with Mark Antony by the Romans, Egypt became a Roman colony from the year 32 BC onwards. Well, it's a very rich history. The book is beautiful. Please try to get it downloaded and read it. And definitely it's a very important introduction to Egypt. You go from the ancient Egyptian period time, from the pyramids with its highest of the highest pyramid, that is Cheops pyramid, 147.5, the tallest till the end, tallest building till the end of the 19th century. Imagine that. Well, a real fantastic book, Ancient Egypt, from prehistory to the Islamic conquest by the Britannica group. Stay tuned to us in Radio Cairo. We're coming right away after the break. So you're still listening to Radio Cairo, the world of info. My name is Dr. Amr MABROuk. Dua Muhammad is still at the control, and we're coming from Studio 3 in the European station of Radio Cairo. This is Radio Cairo, and now we go to another interesting book, and it's called Ego is the Enemy by Ryan Holiday. Ryan Holiday is a philosopher, a thinker, and he has written a lot of books and given a lot of articles about self-help. And I think this book deserves to be read because it is about the most important cause of failure of people in their fields of work, in reaching their targets, and in getting to where to satisfy themselves and reach to the maximum happiness. And this is the ego. Yes, the ego. Our love to our ego, and the ego that is really should be considered as the enemy. Because he said that in order to have a successful life, you have to have a clear target, and you have to work hard to reach this target, and you have to have a lot of aspirations. But ego prevents us from reaching there. Humility and reality acceptance are the real cure. So remove the veil of your bad conduct because of the self-delusion. This is how we go, because we think of ourselves. Our ego always prevent us from understanding how far we are sharp, we are clear, we are the best of the world, we are on top of the world. If the ego tells us this, then we are in real trouble. You would think that you are always going to win a situation or face great success, and while you are doing nothing to do that. And this is the first important point. Ego is sending us into delusion. The second important point is we consume a lot of time in talking. And this chapter is called Talk, Talk, Talk. Yes, if you go on talking about yourself, you don't have enough time to work yourself. And this is the example that he has put. The book is full of beautiful examples. The example is about General Sherman. General Sherman is an American general in the Civil War. He has accepted his role as a distinguished general, led his troops silently, planned very much for every step he did, aspired to reach success, and was victorious in all the battles he went through, but without talking, without claiming that he is the best one in the world, or he is doing a great job, or he is fulfilling his dreams. All this stuff he didn't do. He just concentrated on work, and that's why he was very successful. And even when he was the Union forces won in the end, the people went to him and the politicians went to him and said, whatever you need in your life, we're going to give it to you because you are a savior of the United States. And he said, I don't need anything. And he just accepted to be retired humbly in his residence in New York City, and didn't go into politics. In contrast to his counterpart, the General Grant, who was also a Union general, a very clever general, a very distinguished officer. He worked together with Sherman, and he won all his battles. But Grant really accepted the offer to go into politics, and he went into uncharted waters because he didn't study politics. He was not that great politician. And because of his popularity, he won 2 terms of elections as a president of the United States. And it was well known, historically documented, that it is because of his ego that pushed him towards getting to reach this great status as a president of the United States. He failed as a president. There was a lot of corruption in his administration, and he went into a lot of shame after these 2 tenors, and the people remembered him as a very bad president. So the comparison between 2 generals who were real popular heroes, real achievers in their field, one of them accepted the offer to go into politics, the other did not want to go into politics because he said this is not his field, this is what not he was trained to do, and therefore he kept his status and position in the hearts of the Americans up till now. And the second important point, or the third important point about ego, is that our ego would always put us above the others, and it will tell us that we should be better, we should reach better, we are going to fulfill our dreams. This is one type, and the other type is to do. And so there is a big difference between to be or to do, and to do is much better. And he has given us an example of a fighter pilot who was a colonel in the American Air Force, who was a great thinker and a great educated man who pushed the Air Force into extreme best horizons, and he never asked for a promotion. He never reached for anything but becoming a real technical innovator in the field of aviation. And thus he achieved notoriety as a great scientist and an officer, and he never ran after a rank or going to become a general. So he retired as a colonel, but he was famous up till now for being the great man who has paved the way for advance in the field of aviation. So he always insisted on not to become not to have authority, but to become at the same time an authority, not to have authority, but to being an authority and a reference in this field. This gives us an idea of such a great man by the name a humble pilot in the American Air Force. And the third important point, which is definitely very important, is you should always accept the idea to become a student. You're still listening to the World of Info. My name is Dr. Amr MABROUK, and Muhammad is still at the control. And yes, we are talking about the book, The Ego is the Enemy by Ryan Holiday. And we have just stopped at how to become a student. Always believe in yourself and be and stay always as a student. A famous story goes about a guitarist who was working as a real starter, and he had a chance of a lifetime that the famous band Metallica wanted to change their guitarist and put this guy to become their own guitarist, and he was selected. He could have just settled on being a guitarist of a very famous band, but he decided that he needs more education. So he went after a great guitar instructor and teacher who teach him all the tricks that were left for him to learn. And he decided to follow his suit until he became one of the best guitarists in the world. So he always he didn't say stop my training or stop my education at the level of that I've become a guitarist of one of the most famous bands in the world, but I will build on this reputation. And perhaps one of the most important things about the ego is that the ego, we can be pushed to do something by passion, and this is not my thing. When some people say you're doing your job passionately, this is not really a compliment, because this could be a disaster. Because, for example, he put the example of Eleanor Roosevelt. Eleanor Roosevelt, the famous first lady, the most famous first lady in the history of the United States. She was the wife of Franklin Delano Roosevelt, and she was a lady who was very interested in saving the world, if I may use the expression, of women empowerment, of black people empowerment. She was a great lady, and somebody told her, we love your work in charity, you do your work passionately. She said, no, I'm not doing it passionately. I'm doing it because it's my purpose in life. My purpose is to do so, and I have this chance to do it. An example of people who did their work passionately in the wrong direction was Napoleon. Napoleon, for example, had the passion to invade Russia, and he was defeated there because he fought against all odds. The same thing happened to Hitler when he decided passionately to invade Russia and the Soviet Union, not knowingly that this will cause his destruction, because his passion has blinded him from the real purpose of this work. Another thing about the ego is that the ego might push us to avoid working as a subordinate. For example, if you're a graduate of a Harvard business administration, and then you have a chance to become working in a very famous company, and you go to this company and you always say, I'm an Ivy League graduate and therefore I shouldn't work small jobs, and you start looking at your seniors with great criticism, especially if they are not graduates of Harvard. But yes, they are your seniors. Your job is to help them, not to criticize them. Your job is to prepare for them the canvas so that they can draw, and you can enlighten their path so that they can reach success. So you will succeed with them as a member of the team, and definitely this you will be rewarded afterwards. So the canvas strategy is to prepare and to work humbly with your seniors because you are learning from them. And another important point is restraining yourself when you, for example, you are working in a sort of animosity or a type of environment that is so critical of you. For example, he gave the example of Jackie Robinson. He was the most famous baseball player in the world, and he was the first African American baseball superhero. He got the advice from his trainer, and he told him, listen, I want to tell you something. Everybody is hating the idea that an African American gentleman is playing in the prime league of baseball. You are the first to do that. you're going to face a lot of animosities. You're going to face a lot of racial harassment and talks and bad wordings and bad talk from your colleagues and even from the public. You should restrain yourself. And restraining himself, Jackie Robinson did. And this paved the way for a lot of African American players to become real famous in the Prime League of Baseball. And this was through his restraining of himself. Although he was very well known in his prime time, in his early years, as becoming very aggressive with anyone who insult him or give him bad wordings or bad mouthing. So this is an important point, to tame your ego. Another point about the ego that can reach your head. For example, there was a Civil War general by the name of McClellan, who was very well-educated general, and he was given a command of one of the divisions. He became very hesitant in his attacks because he was always calculating everything in the plan and doing the war or the plan or the battle in his head several times and not doing it on practical. And therefore, he was removed from his command because simply he didn't do anything. And this is another point. Also, the pride, feeling very proud at the times that you should not be. You're a young, humble starter. Why should you be very proud of everything or yourself and claiming to yourself having a great distinguished status in the work, while actually you're just a humble starter? Always be humble. Always deal with yourself in humility. You have to work. Work is the direction, not talk. Another important point is always learn, and always don't stop learning. And he gave the example of Genghis Khan, who has learned from the countries that he has conquered. Although he was a great destructive forces, but he instructed all his army to learn from others. And unfortunately, he became a very famous conqueror of the world. And when you are doing something, don't you tell yourself a story, meaning like, don't say that I was successful because I was very well prepared. This is not the right way to make up this story. You were successful because you have prepared yourself and you did one step in your path to glory. You don't have to linger around this step and talk about it in all these egocentric capabilities. This should not go in and add in more details. So, entitlement, control, and paranoia are the reasons of failure. And we have seen great leaders going into this trap. Like, for example, Nixon, who was always self-entitled and wanted to exercise his control. And anyone who listens to his recordings, that he ordered the recordings in the Watergate scandal, will know how this man was really insane and feeling very much entitled. So managing yourself and organizing every step is the thing that, for example, Ike did. Eisenhower was a very organized person, and he liked it to delegate a lot of jobs to his subordinates so that he will make the decision in the end. He doesn't go much into details, because going into details will definitely waste the time of him as a leader or as a commander-in-chief. He has learned that lesson very heavily when he was the commander-in-chief of the whole Western theater in World War II, and he was successful in that. So when he became a president, he was given, for example, a letter written in it, personal and very important. And he told his secretary, this should not be allowed. Nobody should reach me, because I have people who are security cleared, who can open this letter and see if it's really personal and it's really important. This is not my job to open letters or to summarize them or to reach a decision. They should be read, by well-informed people, by secure people, and then they would come to me and say, X or Y is sending you a letter and saying so and so. What do you want to do and what do you want to answer? So that's why Ike became one of the most successful presidents of the United States. Although some people would say that he was one of the most people who played golf. But he played golf because he had the time, because he was designating his job to a lot of subordinates, trustworthy subordinates. Another idea of very successful people was George Marshall. George Marshall was the chief of the United States Army during World War II. And he was a very humble man. He never thought of having any honors. He never thought of being very selfish or asked for ranks or asked to benefits. What he was concerned for is the work and only the work that he was interested to do. And that's why he did it with complete humbleness. And that's why he was very successful in his work. And he's the one who has made the Marshall Program, which have really, Marshall Plan, which has really helped to save Germany from going into communism and Japan from failing also in communism. So maintaining your sobriety and your modesty is another example by, for example, the famous Angela Merkel, who has shown us how greatly humble she was and how she dealt with her life with great cautious. And she said always, fear is a bad advisor. The most successful people are the ones you haven't met yet and you don't know them. So definitely she was very much in understanding everything and acting very humbly and very concentrated and successful in that. So we have to know that, for example, Goethe said in his wording is that ego in success and failure is the will that you will face a battle, and you know that he will face or not face this battle. You have to go through this battle first, because failure is not an option. So you don't have to value yourself higher than it should be, the truth of you. And he gave a very nice example of what we call a lifetime or the dead time. The lifetime is that how you can use every single moment in your life to make use of it and get more benefits. And there is something times called the dead time. The dead time, for example, if you are ill, if you are sick, or if you are in jail like Malcolm X. Malcolm X was a member of a gang, and he was a thief, and he got 7 years in prison, and he was caught red-handed, as they use the expression. This was a wake-up call for Malcolm X. Malcolm X, during his stay in the jail, has changed this dead time into real lifetime. He became very much in teaching himself how to read and write. He went to the library of the jail and read a lot of books, became very much cultured, studied in religion and studied in all types of theology and history, and brought up a man who is definitely a man who well deserved to become a leader of the black or the African American people, who became very much ideal in spite of missing his way in his early life. So this is an example of how can you change the lifetime into the dead time into a lifetime. So if there is a problem and you have failed in it, then you have to change your attitude. You have to understand why you failed. You didn't fail because the people have decided to harass you or decided to put you down or fail you. You could have easily failed because you missed a chance or you didn't work well. Getting to know and understand what was the cause of your failure will definitely lead you to success. And the most important, valuable example of that is Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs was an innovator, a great businessman, and he was having biggest share in Apple. And he became by time very much egocentric, and he was treating everybody of his subordinates or his partners very badly. And therefore they decided to kick him out of Apple. When he got kicked out of Apple, he didn't waste time to try to go back or try to come back. He left and he opened up a new company, Pixar, and he worked very hard that Apple came back to him and begged him to come back again to the helm of power. And when he came as another new person, not the arrogant Steve Jobs, not the man who thinks of himself that he's the chosen, but he was really very modest and moderate. And that's why he was able to make more success to the company and made it very interesting to know. So a book that really deserves to be read. The book name is Ego is the Enemy by Ryan Holiday, a book that deserves to be read. Stay tuned with us in the world of info. So you're still tuned to Radio Cairo. This is World of Info. Today is the world of books. My name is Dr. Amr MABROUK, and Dua Muhammad is still at the control, and we have reached the final part of our program. Today we have presented two books that really deserves to be read. The first book is Ancient Egypt, From Prehistory to the Islamic Conquest by the Britannica Group, a book that definitely takes you by the hand to examine the history of Egypt and takes you through 5,000 years of civilization. Definitely you have to read this book. The second book is about Ego is the Enemy, and Ego is the Enemy by Ryan Holiday. It's another interesting book that deserves to be read, and I think that reading such a book will definitely change your mind about your ego and will help you to control your ego and have self-control. We're looking forward to see you the same time, same station next week in Radio Cairo and World of Info. Stay tuned to Radio Cairo. My name is Dr. Amr MABROUK, and Dua Muhammad is at the control.